Hi loves and happy Monday. Woo! We are still in freaking June. Oh my gosh. And we are still on the female killers theme. I know that some of you guys are excited about it. I am too. Now we have to save the worst for last. And trust me when I say I got heated, I got upset, I got emotional, I got sad over this case. Now I must warn you, even though we all know that most of my crime and conviction cases are graphic, we discuss true crime, we discuss murder, dismemberment, all kinds of stuff. Today we'll be discussing crimes against children, and I don't usually put a disclaimer, but something about crimes against children I just have to. I literally just have to. So if you know that you're not able to handle it, I think I can say that, you can tap out now, and that's fine and alright. Now, we all know that parents are supposed to protect us, especially children, like little kids. Even if you're not a parent, you just have this instinct to want to protect the babies. You know what I'm saying? But especially parents, there's just this expectation. You birthed this child, or you're taking care of this child. You just have that feeling towards the child. I don't know, maybe it's just me. But what happens when a parent neglects to do their job? Now in this case, we're going to talk about just that. We're going to talk about a child that her parents failed her many times in life. Now let us jump right into it. Iman Moss was a single father to a beautiful baby girl, Imani Gabrielle Moss. She was born on April 23rd, 2003. Now, she was named after her father. It was so cute, Iman and Imani. Oh my gosh. I think that's a cute way to name your child. Not like Herbert, Keisha, Herbie Shaw. Like, that's not cute. And if anybody watching my channel will name Herbie Shaw, I'm sorry, but I think her name's ugly. Let's move on. Shortly after giving birth to Imani, her biological mother, who was not named, gave up her parental rights, granting Iman sole custody of his daughter. Imani's biological mother was a drug addict, and Iman was abusive towards the mother of his child. In 2004, Iman was arrested and charged with battery and second-degree child cruelty because he beat Imani's biological mother in front of the child, which was Imani. Imani's mother had 4 other children, so she had 5 kids in total, and none of the other children belonged to Iman, so they only shared 1 child together, which was Imani, and this was his first child, apparently. After she gave up her sole custody, she had no interest in Imani, and they lost contact. So Imani had no relationship with her biological mother. In addition to her father, Imani had her grandmother and her aunt, who was Iman's mother and his sister. She was described as an incredibly bright child. She liked playing, she liked cooking, she liked reading, she liked ballet. She was just active, and she was really friendly. Now fast forward to 2007. Iman, the single father, met Tiffany Brown, a preschool teacher at church. They were introduced by a friend, and from that moment, they just hit it off. They started a relationship, they started to date, and Tiffany was introduced to Imani, who was about 3 or 4 at the time. In July of 2009, the couple tied the knot, and Tiffany moved into Iman's apartment with Imani. Eventually, the couple went on to have 2 children, a son and a daughter. So 2 became 3, and then 3 became 5. Now, Tiffany would treat her 2 biological children very well, but as it relates to her stepchild, well, she abused her. She would beat her over very trivial matters, and she would send her to school with welts and bruises all over her body. I'm not quite sure when the abuse started, but in 2010, Tiffany had beat Imani with a brown leather belt for not doing her homework. Now, as you can imagine, because of Imani's home life, this started to reflect and affect her schoolwork. Now, she was having difficulties in school, and a teacher wrote this down on a report card. Imani got this report card and she was really worried, and she went to the school nurse and she told her that she was afraid to take this report card home because she thought her parents would hurt her. She admitted to the school nurse that her mother had beat her with a belt. Some reports said that it was a curtain rod, but it does not matter what instrument was used. At the end of the day, the child was beaten. The nurse examined Imani and found multiple bruises, scabs, and welts all over her body, on her shoulders, her chest, her back, and her legs. The nurse reported this and Imani was taken to police headquarters. Tiffany was arrested and charged with first-degree child cruelty. Then she admitted that she hit the child 3 times because she was not doing her homework. She pled guilty, and because she was a first-time offender, she received a plea deal which consisted of 5 years probation and mandatory parenting classes. In addition, Tiffany was no longer allowed to work as a preschool teacher, and in fact, Tiffany never worked again after this incident. But I think it was by choice. Now, I do understand that she couldn't teach as a preschool teacher anymore. This was what she went to school for. This was her occupation. She had a degree in this. However, there was multiple jobs that she could have gotten that would pay her and help her keep the household afloat. But she chose to be a stay-at-home mom. Imani was removed from the home and placed in the custody of her grandmother, Robin, which is Iman's mother. And Imani started to excel. She was happier, she was smiling more, she was doing great in school again. Iman took a parenting class and Tiffany went through an anger management program. After 6 months, when all of this was completed, Iman fought for custody for his daughter and she was returned to the home. Robin, the grandmother, actually fought this decision because she wanted Imani to stay with her. Imani was doing good, it was no issue, and she was not getting abused over there. If she got back Imani, we would not be having this conversation, now would we? Now, Iman had to take a second job to support his family since Tiffany decided to not have an income and be a stay-at-home mom. Iman had no time with the children because his schedule was so tight. Now, he would wake up at around 5 a.m. in the morning to get ready for work, go to work, spend the whole day at work, and get home at around 5 p.m. So he would have around half an hour to get ready for his second job, which started at 6 p.m. Then he would work his second job and he would get home at around 1 in the morning, and he would have around 4 hours of sleep, 4 or 5 hours of sleep to do this all over again. Now, as you can imagine, him coming home at this time, the kids would be sleeping, and when he would come home from his first job, he had no time to spend with the kids. He just had to get ready for his second job. So this man was just working. Now, this simply means that Tiffany was the sole caretaker of the 3 children, and she could do whatever she wanted to do without her husband's supervision. And this includes abusing his daughter. Between 2011 and 2013, the family relocated many times, and Imani's grandmother was not able to see her or really have any contact with her. She did not stop trying to regain custody, but she failed. Despite several reports to the authorities, the abuse continued. In 2012, 9-year-old Imani ran away from home twice. The first time when she tried to run away, she went to the officer in the apartment complex, and she told him that her stepmother had beaten her, had tied her up with a belt and placed her in a cold shower. The officer brought Imani back to the apartment building, and Tiffany was really shocked. She was confused, and she was saying that Imani was lying about this whole situation. There was no proof and there was nothing that the officer could do, so he just left it alone. The other incident was in July. Imani was found sleeping near an apartment complex by an officer. Now, the officer was speaking to her and she said that she decided to run away because her stepmother was mean to her. The officer reported the issue to the Child Protective Services, and he also filed runaway and curfew violations against Imani. Now, the reason why he did this is because she could take her case to the juvenile court, so she could, plead her case in front of a judge. However, there was no follow-up. In May 2013, the couple took the 3 kids to see Iman's mother and his sister, which is the children's grandmother and aunt, for Mother's Day. The family noticed that there was something wrong with Imani right away. She was very shy and she acted very timid. She was very closed off and she was really thin and her hair was cut. Now, Imani, she has nice long hair and she would usually do her hair in braids, but her hair was cut short. Now, when the grandmother asked Tiffany, why is Imani's hair cut short, Tiffany's response was, if you want to act ugly, you will look ugly. Unfortunately, this Mother's Day was the last day that the family got to see Imani. Once the 2013 school year had ended and summer came, Tiffany sent a letter to Imani's school letting them know that she will no longer be attending school when it comes in September. She will be homeschooled from now on. School was Imani's safe space, as it is for, majority of children. She had friends there. She could play. She could learn. She actually liked school. So this was taken away from her. And when she was home, the only person that she saw was her parents and her 2 other siblings. She wasn't even allowed to go outside. The neighbors were unaware that this couple had a 3rd child because Imani was always locked inside. The 2 other children, they could go outside, they could play with the neighbors, all of that jazz. But Imani was stuck inside in her room and she was starved. Imani was isolated, Imani was beaten, and Imani was starved. Where was her father? He was busy working, and her stepmother could do whatever she wanted to this child. No, on the weekends when Imani was actually taking care of his children, Imani was let out and she would eat and eat a lot and she would gorge food, which is understandable because she's starved for 5 or 6 days and she's finally getting a chance to eat. She's going to eat as much as she possibly can. Now, she was thin and getting thinner, but Iman claimed that she had a growth spurt. Like, he just summed her not growing to a growth spurt. Imani eventually got too weak to move and she was unable to leave her bed. She could not even leave her bed to use the bathroom, so she was forced to urinate and defecate in her bed. While Iman was at work, Tiffany would send him pictures of the foods that she would be preparing. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Imani was not getting any. Sometimes she would ask him to get cookie dough so she could bake cookies for the children. And what's really horrible, well, everything is horrible about this, but while she was baking the cookies, right, Imani could smell this in her room while she was starving to death. So she was not only starved and beaten and locked away, she was also taunted. Persons are probably thinking that the process of starvation is quick and easy. You just starve and die. But no, it is very long and it is very painful. And thinking what this little girl went through, it just breaks my freaking heart. First, you feel hunger pains. And then you get fatigued, you start losing weight, you start losing energy, your body essentially starts shutting down functions, like regular functions, in order for your body to survive, and then you die. On October 24th, 2013, after several weeks of starvation, Imani suffered a seizure. Tiffany was home, but she simply didn't care and she failed to call for help. When her husband came home from his second job, she said that something was wrong with Imani, and he went into the bathroom. He found her lying on the floor. She was shaking, she was unresponsive, and her eyes were rolling back and forth. He suggested that they take his daughter to the hospital, but Tiffany objected and she gave him no explanation for this. Instead of calling 911 anyways to save his daughter's life and like, let's not think about the repercussions right now, Iman took his daughter to her bedroom and he tried to feed her over a few days, but he failed. On October 28th, 2013, 10-year-old Imani Gabriel Moss died from starvation. His wife called him at his first job to tell him that his daughter had died, and he said that he could not get off work, so he had to wait until work was over to come home regular time, which is crazy to me. Your wife just called you to tell you that your 10-year-old daughter has died, and instead of just dropping everything and just rushing home to hold your baby girl, you waited hours later simply because you could not get the day off. Like, I am walking out of that workplace. I like that job. I'm getting heated. Let me calm down. So when he returned home, everything seemed to be fine and normal. The kids were playing, Tiffany was watching TV, and his daughter was dead in her room. She was laying on a blanket on the floor. Tiffany did not even have the respect to put this girl on the bed. She didn't even care that much. So her idiot of a father then wrapped her body in the blanket that she was laying on, and then he moved her from her room and put her into a computer room that they had in the house. Iman insisted on calling the police, but of course Tiffany objected, but this time she gave a reason. She said because she was on probation, she did not want to go back to jail, she did not want to get into trouble, and she also didn't want them to lose their 2 other kids. Funny, the first thing that she thought about was herself and her 2 other children, because she just did not give one flying fuck about her stepdaughter. Imani's corpse stayed in the computer room for 2 days. Iman would go to work as usual, and when he came home, he would go in there, lie with his daughter's dead body, and he would grieve. They eventually came to the agreement that they were going to get some supplies and dispose of Imani's body. And on the 30th of October, Iman went out to get some supplies. On October 31st, the couple placed Imani's clothes and the blankets in a large trash bag, and they placed her body in another trash bag. Now by this time, as you can imagine, rigor mortis has set in. The body was stiff and they had to use duct tape to fold this child and placed her in the trash bag. They loaded the bags into their family vehicle and also a metal garbage bin, which they purchased. And crazy enough, they also put the 2 surviving children in the back seat. So their older sister's body was in the trunk the parents were in the front seat and they were in the back seat, clueless as to what was going on. So they drove around trying to find somewhere to dispose of Imani's body. It could have been a few minutes, it could have been a few hours, but by this time the clock had ticked and it was no longer October 31st, but it was now November 1st. So they finally found an area. They took out the trash can. They put some charcoal in the trash can. They put Imani's body in the trash can. They poured lighter fluid on it and they lit it afire. Now their smart idea was to burn Imani's body into ash, dispose of it, and then they would call the police and tell them that she ran away. Now she tried running away 2 times before in 2012, so this was their, you know, perfect plan. But after around 5 minutes, the couple realized that it would take much longer to burn this body to nothing. So they out the fire and they waited until the trash can cooled down, because it was a metal trash can. They put it back into the car and they drove home. The next morning, Iman went to work like normal with his daughter's body in the vehicle. The only thing different with Iman's day was that he met up with his cousin and he told his cousin everything and asked for advice. Now his cousin, being a normal functioning human being, told this man to call the police. Iman went home, went to his second job, and then came home after his second job. His daughter's body was still in the vehicle and he told Tiffany that he was going to call the police. Tiffany was not happy about this. She threw the bin with his daughter's body out of the vehicle. She put the 2 kids into the vehicle and she sped off. Iman sat there for some time, and then at around 4 a.m. in the morning, well, 4 a.m. obviously is morning, he called the police and he told the police that he was suicidal. When the police came, he told them everything that happened. Well, no, he didn't tell them everything that happened. He told them that his daughter drank some chemicals and died. So he was still not willing to tell the whole truth for his daughter's sake. The police saw the condition of the girl and they knew automatically that he was lying, and he was arrested right then and there. On the flip side, Tiffany brought her children to her mother's house and she eventually turned herself in to the authorities. 10-year-old Imani weighed 32 pounds. That is the average weight of a 3-year-old child. Imani was more or less skin and bones, and after the autopsy, her organs were found to be really small. They could not determine how long she was starved for, but obviously starvation doesn't happen overnight, so they knew it must have taken quite some time. Iman confessed to trying to cover up the murder, and in 2015 he was convicted of felony murder and concealing a body. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He claimed that he did not know that his wife was starving his child. He agreed to testify against his wife, who rejected a plea deal which would have just sent her to life in prison. She got a trial. He didn't, because, you know, he took a plea deal. The trial began on April 15th, 2019, and Tiffany decided to represent herself for whatever reason, because she had no legal background or training at all. During the trial, listening to Iman was so frustrating. He just sounded so dumb. He sounded so slow. It was just awful. He said that his daughter should have stayed with his mom, which was her grandmother, but his pride just did not allow him to make that happen. Now, parts of the trial, it's available on YouTube. Everything's available on YouTube. If you guys have 4 hours to waste, a piece. You guys can watch it, but I do not. However, I will be adding pieces of what Iman said so you guys can hear how this man sounds.
What I did was when I said, when the incident happened, to call 911, and when I didn't, I put myself in a bad bind. Because she said, I'm on probation, I don't want to go to jail. It don't make any sense. I guess out of love, I was trying to fix the problem that I couldn't fix. I was trying to save her, but I couldn't save her. I couldn't save my daughter. I can't explain.
Jurors were shown the autopsy photos and they were awful. Some jurors put their head in their hands, some of them turned away, and some of them cried. On April 29th, 2 weeks after the trial started, Tiffany was convicted on 6 counts. 1 count of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of cruelty to children, and 1 count of concealing a body. On May 1st, 2019, Tiffany Nicole Moss was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Her execution date was set between June 7th and the 14th, but because of her appeals, these were pushed back. Tiffany has not admitted guilt, nor has she expressed remorse or has apologized to the family. Robin, Imani's grandmother, expressed disappointment in the verdict because she said she wanted Tiffany to be locked away for a very, very, very long time. She thinks that death is too easy, and I agree with her. So the couple is still married, but I'm not quite sure if they're in communication. I don't think that's allowed because both of them were convicted. I don't think, you know, they can send love letters and stuff like that. But anyways, the 2 surviving children were sent to foster homes and they now live with foster parents. Their names have never been out there in the public. The files are actually closed. And the families try to gain custody of the kids, and that's a big no-no. Personally, I think that the grandmother should have been given the children. But, you know, it is what it is. This case makes my blood boil. I get all sorts of emotional. So clearly I have some thoughts on this, but I'm just going to try and condense my thoughts because I literally can sit here and talk for another 15 minutes about this case and the neglect and the recklessness. But we're not gonna do that. I don't know if Tiffany had some form of resentment against Imani from before. If she was abusive towards her because that's the type of person she is, or Imani was rude. Mind you, even if Imani was rude, she did not deserve anything. Not even a percentage of what she got. But I'm just saying, like, maybe that were the case and she was being a disciplinarian. I just messed that word up. Maybe she was being a disciplinarian by beating the child. However, when Tiffany lost her job, right? She went to school to become a preschool teacher and she could no longer teach as a preschool teacher. I think she developed some form of resentment towards Imani and she was just taking her anger out on the child. Tiffany has never given a reason for doing what she has done, and again, she hasn't expressed any guilt or anything. She hasn't said sorry or anything. So, you know, the world may never know why she truly did it. But I do think that her losing her job, she just blamed Imani and just took her problems out on Imani. And she was getting away with it. So she just pushed it further and further and further until, unfortunately, the child died. She is evil personified. 100%. Like, crimes against children really hurt me hard. And for you to starve a freaking 10-year-old, starve this child, to see this child transform from this happy, preppy child to like this literally shell of herself. How does she live with herself? How? I think the saddest part about this case is the fact that her biological mom failed her. and the only mother that she knew, which was her stepmother, then failed her. The main character, the person that's supposed to be there for you, failed her. Her father. And I don't really talk about my childhood and stuff like that on this channel because I just don't. But I'm a daddy's girl. My father raised me, and doing this case, I thought about me as a child with my father, because I had stepmoms too. I know for a fact that my father had my back. If one mosquito pitch upon me, that dead. You understand? That's the type of father that I had. So I knew that I'm good. You understand what I'm saying? But I'm just thinking, how could he have turned a blind eye to this? She was being abused in a sense that you could see her get smaller, you could see her get thin. 32 pounds. This is a 10-year-old weighing 32 pounds. 32 pounds. Don't remember that said that too nice. 32 pounds. Let that sink in. This man must have known something, and he chose to stay with this woman. This woman that valued her children more than she valued his. And the messed up part about it, I'm trying not to cuss. The messed up part about it is, after the fact, after she died, he still did not value his child. She had no respect from the one person that's supposed to be there for you. He failed her, and he failed her big time. He failed her in life, and he failed her especially in death. And that is what breaks my heart. Anyways, guys, that's all the information that I have for you guys today. I will be linking my sources down in the description box so you guys can check out this case for yourself. I think that this video is going to be a long one. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, thank you. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all of them niceties there. I'm so glad that you guys are here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So enjoy the rest of your week, and as per usual, remember to be a beautiful soul, not just a gorgeous face. All right, bye. Brown leather belt, blood. Jaja.